Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 352. Narrated by Yusuf bin Mahak, Marwan had been appointed as the governor of Hijaz by Muawiyah. He delivered a sermon and mentioned Yazid bin Muawiyah so that the people might take the oath of allegiance to him as the successor of his father, Muawiyah. Then Abdurrahman bin Abu Bakr told him something, whereupon Marwan ordered that he be arrested. But Abdurrahman entered Aisha's house and they could not arrest him. Marwan said, "It is he, Abdurrahman, about whom Allah revealed this verse. And the one who says to his parents, 'Fie on you! Do you hold out the promise to me?'" On that, Aisha said from behind a screen, "Allah did not reveal anything from the Quran about us except what was connected with the declaration of my innocence, of the slander." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 353. Narrated by Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, "I never saw Allah's apostle laughing loudly enough to enable me to see his uvula, but he used to smile only. And whenever he saw clouds or winds, signs of deep concern would appear on his face. I said, 'O Allah's apostle, when people see clouds they usually feel happy, hoping that it would rain, while I see that when you see clouds, one could notice signs of dissatisfaction on your face.' He said, 'O Aisha, what is the guarantee for me that there will be no punishment in it, since some people were punished with the wind? Verily, some people received, the punishment, but, while seeing the cloud, they said, this cloud will give us rain.'" Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 354. Narrated by Abu Huraira, the Prophet said, "Allah created his creation, and when he had finished it, the womb got up and caught hold of Allah, whereupon Allah said, 'What is the matter?' On that, it said, 'I seek refuge with you from those who sever the ties of kith and kin.' On that Allah said, 'Will you be satisfied if I bestow my favors on him who keeps your ties, and withhold my favors from him who severs your ties?' On that it said, 'Yes, O my Lord.' Then Allah said, 'That is for you.' Abu Huraira added, 'If you wish, you can recite, would you then, if you were given the authority, do mischief in the land and sever your ties of kinship?" 4722. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 355. Narrated by Abu Huraira, as above, number 354, but added, "Then Allah's apostle said, 'Recite if you wish, would you then?'" 4722. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 356. Narrated by Muawiyah bin Abi al-Muzarrad, Allah's apostle said, "Recite if you wish, would you then if you were given the authority?" 4722. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 357. Narrated by Aslam, while Allah's apostle was proceeding at night during one of his journeys and Umar bin al-Khattab was traveling beside him, Umar asked him about something but Allah's apostle did not reply. He asked again, but he did not reply, and then he asked, for the third time, but he did not reply. On that, Umar bin al-Khattab said to himself, "Thakalat Umar, may Umar's mother lose her son." I asked Allah's apostle 3 times but he did not reply. Umar then said, "I made my camel run faster and went ahead of the people, and I was afraid that some Quranic verses might be revealed about me. But before getting involved in any other matter, I heard somebody calling me. I said to myself, I fear that some Quranic verses have been revealed about me, and so I went to Allah's apostle and greeted him. He, Allah's apostle, said, 'Tonight a surah has been revealed to me, and it is dearer to me than that on which the sun rises, i.e. the world.' Then he recited, 'Verily, we have given you a manifest victory.'" 48.1. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 358. Narrated by Anas, "Verily, we have given you, O Muhammad, a manifest victory," refers to Al-Hudaybiyah peace treaty. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 359. Narrated by Abdullah bin Mughaffal, on the day of the conquest of Mecca, the Prophet recited Surat al-Fath in a vibrating and pleasant voice. Muawiyah, the sub-narrator said, if I could imitate the recitation of the Prophet I would do so. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 360. Narrated by al-Mughira, the Prophet used to offer night prayers till his feet became swollen. Somebody said to him, Allah has forgiven you, your faults of the past and those to follow. On that, he said, shouldn't I be a thankful slave of Allah? Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 361. Narrated by Aisha, the Prophet used to offer prayer at night, for such a long time, that his feet used to crack. I said, O Allah's Apostle, why do you do it since Allah has forgiven you your faults of the past and those to follow? He said, shouldn't I love to be a thankful slave of Allah? When he became old, he prayed while sitting, but if he wanted to perform a bowing, he would get up, recite some other verses, and then perform the bowing. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 362. Narrated by Abdullah bin Amr bin al-Az, this verse, verily we have sent you, O Muhammad, as a witness, as a bringer of glad tidings and as a warner. 48.8. Which is in the Quran, appears in the surah thus, verily we have sent you, O Muhammad, as a witness, as a bringer of glad tidings and as a warner, and as a protector for the illiterates, i.e., the Arabs. You are my slave and my apostle, and I have named you al-Mutawakkil, one who depends upon Allah. You are neither hard-hearted nor of fierce character, nor one who shouts in the markets. You do not return evil for evil, but excuse and forgive. Allah will not take you unto him till he guides through you a crooked, curved, nation on the right path by causing them to say, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah. With such a statement he will cause to open blind eyes, deaf ears, and hardened hearts. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 363. Narrated by Al-Bara, while a man from the companions of the Prophet was reciting Quran, and his horse was tied in the house, the horse got startled and started jumping. The man came out, looked around but could not find anything, yet the horse went on jumping. The next morning he mentioned that to the Prophet. The Prophet said, that was the tranquility, calmness, which descended because of the recitation of the Quran. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 364. Narrated by Jabir, we were 1,400 on the day of Al-Hudaybiyah. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 365. Narrated by Uqba bin Saban, Abdullah bin Mughaffal al-Muzani, who was one of those who witnessed the event of the tree, said, the Prophet forbade the throwing of small stones with 2 fingers. Abdullah bin al-Mughaffal al-Muzani also said, the Prophet also forbade urinating at the place where one takes a bath. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 366. Narrated by Thabit bin ad-Dahak, who was one of the companions of the tree, those who swore allegiance to the Prophet beneath the tree at Al-Hudaybiyah. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 367. Narrated by Habib bin Abi Thabit, I went to Abu Wail to ask him about those who had rebelled against Ali. On that Abu Wail said, we were at Sifin, a city on the bank of the Euphrates, the place where battle took place between Ali and Muawiyah. A man said, will you be on the side of those who are called to consult Allah's book, to settle the dispute? Ali said, yes, I agree that we should settle the matter in the light of the Quran. Some people objected to Ali's agreement and wanted to fight. On that Sal bin Hunayf said, blame yourselves. I remember how, on the day of Al-Hudaybiyah, i.e. the peace treaty between the Prophet and the Quraysh pagans, if we had been allowed to choose fighting, we would have fought the pagans. At that time Umar came to the Prophet, and said, aren't we on the right path, and they, pagans, in the wrong? Won't our killed persons go to paradise, and theirs in the fire? The Prophet replied, yes. Umar further said, then why should we let our religion be degraded and return before Allah has settled the matter between us? The Prophet said, O the son of Al-Khattab, no doubt, I am Allah's apostle and Allah will never neglect me. So Umar left the place angrily, and he was so impatient that he went to Abu Bakr and said, O Abu Bakr, aren't we on the right path, and they, pagans, on the wrong? Abu Bakr said, O the son of Al-Khattab, he is Allah's apostle, and Allah will never neglect him. Then Surah Al-Fath, the victory, was revealed. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 368. Narrated by Ibn Abi Mulaika, the two righteous persons were about to be ruined. They were Abu Bakr and Umar, who raised their voices in the presence of the Prophet when a mission from Bani Tamim came to him. One of the two recommended Al-Aqra bin Habias, the brother of Bani Mujashi, to be their governor, while the other recommended somebody else. Nafi, the sub-narrator, said, I do not remember his name. Abu Bakr said to Umar, you wanted nothing but to oppose me. Umar said, I did not intend to oppose you. Their voices grew loud in that argument, so Allah revealed, O you who believe, raise not your voices above the voice of the Prophet. 49.2, Ibn Az-Zubair said, since the revelation of this verse, Umar used to speak in such a low tone that the Prophet had to ask him to repeat his statements. But Ibn Az-Zubair did not mention the same about his maternal grandfather, i.e. Abu Bakr. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 369. Narrated by Anas bin Malik, the Prophet missed Thabit bin Qais for a period, so he inquired about him. A man said, O Allah's apostle, I will bring you his news. So he went to Thabit and found him sitting in his house and bowing his head. The man said to Thabit, what is the matter with you? Thabit replied that it was an evil affair, for he used to raise his voice above the voice of the Prophet, and so all his good deeds had been annulled, and he considered himself as one of the people of the fire. Then the man returned to the Prophet and told him that Thabit had said, so and so. Musa bin Anas said, the man returned to Thabit with great glad tidings. The Prophet said to the man, go back to him and say to him, you are not from the people of the hellfire, but from the people of paradise. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 370. Narrated by Abdullah bin Az-Zubair, a group of Bani Tamim came to the Prophet, and requested him to appoint a governor for them. Abu Bakr said, appoint Al-Qaqa bin Mabad. Umar said, appoint Al-Aqra bin Habias. On that Abu Bakr said, to Umar, you did not want but to oppose me. Umar replied, I did not intend to oppose you. So both of them argued till their voices grew loud. So the following verse was revealed. O you who believe, be not forward. 49.1. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 371. Narrated by Anas, the Prophet said, the people will be thrown into the hell fire, and it will say, are there any more to come? 50.30, till Allah puts his foot over it, and it will say, Katai, Katai. Enough, enough. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 372. Narrated by Abu Huraira, that the Prophet said, it will be said to the hell, are you filled? It will say, are there any more to come? On that Allah will put his foot on it, and it will say, Katai, Katai. Enough, enough. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 373. Narrated by Abu Huraira, The Prophet said, "Paradise and the fire, hell," argued, and the fire, hell, said, "I have been given the privilege of receiving the arrogant and the tyrants." Paradise said, "What is the matter with me? Why do only the weak and the humble among the people enter me?" On that, Allah said to Paradise, "You are my mercy which I bestow on whoever I wish of my servants." Then Allah said to the hell, fire, "You are my means of punishment by which I punish whoever I wish of my slaves. And each of you will have its fill. As for the fire, hell, it will not be filled till Allah puts his foot over it, whereupon it will say, Katai, Katai. At that time it will be filled, and its different parts will come closer to each other, and Allah will not wrong any of his created beings. As regards paradise, Allah will create a new creation to fill it with. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 374. Narrated by Jarir bin Abdullah, we were in the company of the Prophet on a 14th night, of the lunar month, and he looked at the full moon and said, "You will see your Lord as you see this moon, and you will have no trouble in looking at him. So, whoever can, should not miss the offering of prayers before sunrise, Fajr prayer, and before sunset, Asr prayer." Then the Prophet recited, "And celebrate the praises of your Lord before the rising of the sun and before its setting." 50.39 Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 375. Narrated by Mujahid, Ibn Abbas said, Allah ordered his Prophet to celebrate Allah's praises after all prayers. He refers to his statement, after the prayers. 50.40 Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 376. Narrated by Salama, I complained to Allah's Apostle that I was sick, so he said, "Perform the tawaf of Kaaba at Mecca, while riding behind the people, who are performing the tawaf on foot." So I performed the tawaf while Allah's Apostle was offering the prayer by the side of the Kaaba and was reciting, by the Mount, Sani, and by a decree inscribed. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 377. Narrated by Jubair bin Mut'im, I heard the Prophet reciting Surat at-Tur in the Maghrib prayer, and when he reached the verse, "Were they created by nothing, or were they themselves the creators, or did they create the heavens and the earth? Nay, but they have no firm belief, or do they own the treasures of your Lord? Or have they been given the authority to do as they like?" 52.35-37, my heart was about to fly, when I realized this firm argument. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 378. Narrated by Masruq, I said to Aisha, "O mother, did Prophet Muhammad see his Lord?" Aisha said, "What you have said makes my hair stand on end. Know that if somebody tells you one of the following three things, he is a liar. Whoever tells you that Muhammad saw his Lord, is a liar." Then Aisha recited the verse, "No vision can grasp him, but his grasp is over all vision. He is the most courteous, well acquainted with all things." 6.103 It is not fitting for a human being that Allah should speak to him except by inspiration or from behind a veil. 42.51 Aisha further said, "And whoever tells you that the Prophet knows what is going to happen tomorrow, is a liar." She then recited, "No soul can know what it will earn tomorrow." 31.34 She added, "And whoever tell you that he concealed some of Allah's orders, is a liar." Then she recited, "O Apostle, proclaim the message, which has been sent down to you from your Lord." 5.67 Aisha added, "But the Prophet saw Gabriel in his true form twice." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 379. Narrated by Abdullah, regarding the verses, "And was at a distance of but 2 bow lengths, or, even, nearer, so did Allah convey the inspiration to his slave, Gabriel, and then he Gabriel, conveyed, that to Muhammad, 53.9-10, Ibn Mas'ud narrated to us that the Prophet had seen Gabriel with 600 wings. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 380. Narrated by Assailant, I asked Sir about the statement of Allah, and was at a distance of but 2 bow lengths or, even, nearer. So did Allah convey the inspiration to his slave, Gabriel, and then he, Gabriel, conveyed that to Muhammad. 53.10, he said, Abdullah bin Mas'ud informed us that Muhammad had seen Gabriel with 600 wings. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 381. Narrated by Abdullah, regarding the revelation, truly he, Muhammad, did see of the signs of his Lord, the greatest. 53.18, the Prophet saw a green screen covering the horizon. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 382. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, regarding his statement about the lat and the uwa, lat was originally a man who used to mix sa'ik for the pilgrim. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 383. Narrated by Abu Huraira, Allah's Apostle said, whomever takes an oath in which he mentions lat and uwa, forgetfully, should say, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and whoever says to his companion, come along, let us gamble, must give alms, as an expiation. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 384. Narrated by Urway, I asked Aisha, regarding the sigh between As-Safa and Al-Marwa. She said, out of reverence to the idol Manat which was placed in Al-Mushlal, those who used to assume Iram in its name, used not to perform sigh between As-Safa and Al-Marwa, so Allah revealed, verily, the As-Safa and Al-Marwa, 2 mountains at Mecca, are among the symbols of Allah. 2.158, thereupon, Allah's Apostle and the Muslims used to perform sigh between them. Sufyan said, the idol, Manat was at Al-Mushlal in Qudayd. Aisha added, the verse was revealed in connection with the Ангիր. They and, the tribe of, Ghassan used to assume Layram in the name of Manat before they embraced Islam. Aisha added, there were men from the Ангիր who used to assume Layram in the name of Manat, which was an idol between Mecca and Medina. They said, O Allah's Apostle, we used not to perform the tawaf, sigh, between As-Safa and Al-Marwa out of reverence to Manat. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 385. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, the Prophet performed a prostration when he finished reciting Surat an-Najm, and all the Muslims and pagans and jinns and human beings prostrate along with him. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 386. Narrated by Abdullah, the first surah in which a prostration was mentioned, was Surah an-Najm, the star. Allah's Apostle prostrate, while reciting it, and everybody behind him prostrate except a man whom I saw taking a handful of dust in his hand and prostrate on it. Later I saw that man killed as an infidel, and he was Umayyah bin Khalaf. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 387. Narrated by Ibn Mas'ud, during the lifetime of Allah's Apostle the moon was split into 2 parts, one part remained over the mountain, and the other part went beyond the mountain. On that, Allah's Apostle said, witness this miracle. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 388. Narrated by Abdullah, the moon was cleft asunder while we were in the company of the Prophet, and it became 2 parts. The Prophet said, witness, witness, this miracle. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 389. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, the moon was cleft asunder during the lifetime of the Prophet. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 390. Narrated by Anas, the people of Mecca asked the Prophet to show them a sign, miracle. So he showed them, the miracle, of the cleaving of the moon. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 391. Narrated by Anas, the moon was cleft asunder into two parts. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 392. Narrated by Abdullah bin Masud, the Prophet used to recite, Fahal min madakir, then is there any that will receive admonition. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 393. Narrated by Abdullah, the Prophet used to recite, is there any that remember? And a furious wind, plucking out men, as if they were uprooted stems of palm trees, then how terrible was my punishment and my warnings. 54.20-21. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 394. Narrated by Abu Ishaq, a man asked Al-Aswad, is it Fahal min madakir or mudhakir? Al-Aswad replied, I have heard Abdullah bin Masud reciting it, Fahal min mudakir, I too, heard the Prophet reciting it Fahal min madakir with d. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 395. Narrated by Abdullah, the Prophet recited, Fahal min madakir, and verily an abiding torment seized them early in the morning, so, taste you my torment and my warnings. 54.38-39. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 396. Narrated by Abdullah, the Prophet recited, Fahal min madakir, and verily, we have destroyed nations like unto you, then is there any that will receive admonition. 54.51. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 397. Narrated by Abdullah, I recited before the Prophet Fahal min mudhakir. The Prophet said, it is Fahal min mudhakir. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 398. Narrated by Abbas, Allah's apostle, while in a tent on the day of the battle of Badr, said, O Allah, I request you, to fulfill, your promise and contract. O Allah, if you wish that you will not be worshipped henceforth. On that Abu Bakr held the Prophet by the hand and said, that is enough, O Allah's apostle. You have appealed to your Lord too pressingly, while the Prophet was putting on his armor. So Allah's apostle went out, reciting, their multitude will be put to flight, and they will show their backs. 54.45. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 399. Narrated by Yusuf bin Mahik, I was in the house of Aisha, the mother of the believers. She said, this revelation, nay, but the hour is their appointed time, for their full recompense, and the hour will be more previous and most bitter. 54.46, was revealed to Muhammad at Mecca while I was a playful little girl. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 400. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, while in his tent on the day the battle of Badr, the Prophet said, O Allah, I request you, to fulfill, your promise and contract. O Allah, it you wish that the believers be destroyed. You will never be worshipped henceforth. On that, Abu Bakr held the Prophet by the hand and said, that is enough, O Allah's apostle. You have appealed to your Lord too pressingly. The Prophet was wearing his armor and then went out reciting, their multitude will be put to flight and they will show their backs. Nay, but the hour is their appointed time, for their full recompense, and the hour will be more previous and most bitter. 54.45-46. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 401. Narrated by Abdullah bin Qais, Allah's apostle said, two gardens, the utensils and the contents of which are of silver, and two other gardens, the utensils and contents of which are of gold. And nothing will prevent the people who will be in the Garden of Eden from seeing their Lord except the curtain of majesty over his face. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 402. Narrated by Abdullah bin Qais, Allah's apostle said, "In paradise there is a pavilion made of a single hollow pearl 60 miles wide, in each corner of which there are wives who will not see those in the other corners, and the believers will visit and enjoy them. And there are 2 gardens, the utensils and contents of which are made of silver, and 2 other gardens, the utensils and contents of which are made of so and so, i.e. gold, and nothing will prevent the people staying in the Garden of Eden from seeing their Lord except the curtain of majesty over his face." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 403. Narrated by Abu Huraira, the Prophet said, "In paradise there is a tree which is so big that a rider can travel in its shade for 100 years without passing it, and if you wish, you can recite, 'In shade long extended.'" 56.30. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 404. Narrated by Said bin Jubair, I asked Ibn Abbas about Surat al-Tawbah, and he said, "Surat al-Tawbah? It is exposure, of all the evils of the infidels and the hypocrites." And it continued revealing, that the oft-repeated expression, and of them till they started thinking that none would be left unmentioned therein. I said, "What about Surat al-Anfal?" He replied, "Surat al-Anfal was revealed in connection with the Badr battle." I said, "What about Surat al-Hashr?" He replied, "It was revealed in connection with Bani and Nadir." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 405. Narrated by Said, I asked Ibn Abbas about Surat al-Hashr. He replied, "Say Surat an-Nadir." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 406. Narrated by Ibn Umar, Allah's apostle burnt and cut down the palm trees of Bani and Nadir which were at al-Buwair, a place near Medina. Thereupon Allah revealed, "What you, O Muslims, cut down of the palm trees, of the enemy, or you left them standing on their stems, it was by the leave of Allah, so that he might cover with shame the rebellious." 59.5. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 407. Narrated by Umar, the properties of Bam and Nadir were among the booty that Allah gave to his apostle. Such booty were not obtained by any expedition on the part of Muslims, neither with cavalry, nor with camelry. So those properties were for Allah's apostle only, and he used to provide thereof the yearly expenditure for his wives, and dedicate the rest of its revenues for purchasing arms and horses as war material to be used in Allah's cause. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 408. Narrated by Alqamah, Abdullah, bin Mas'ud, said, Allah curses those ladies who practice tattooing and those who get themselves tattooed, and those ladies who remove the hair from their faces and those who make artificial spaces between their teeth in order to look more beautiful, whereby they change Allah's creation. His saying reached a lady from Bani Asd called Yaqub, who came to Abdullah, and said, "I have come to know that you have cursed such and such ladies." He replied, "Why should I not curse these whom Allah's apostle has cursed and who are cursed in Allah's book?" Yaqub said, "I have read the whole Quran, but I did not find in it what you say." He said, "Verily, if you have read it, i.e. the Quran, you have found it. Didn't you read? And whatsoever the apostle gives you, take it, and whatsoever he forbids you, you abstain from it." 59.7. She replied, "Yes, I did." He said, "Verily, Allah's apostle forbade such things." She said, "But I see your wife doing these things." He said, "Go and watch her." She went and watched her but could not see anything in support of her statement. On that he said, "If my wife was as you thought, I would not keep her in my company." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 409. Narrated by Abdullah, bin Mas'ud, Allah's apostle has cursed the lady who uses false hair. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 410. Narrated by Umar, I recommend that my successor should take care of and secure the rights of the early emigrants, and I also advise my successor to be kind to the ангիր who had homes in Medina, and had adopted the faith, before the Prophet migrated to them, and to accept the good from their good ones and excuse their wrongdoers. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 411. Narrated by Abu Huraira, a man came to Allah's Apostle and said, O Allah's Apostle, I am suffering from fatigue and hunger. The Prophet sent somebody to his wives to get something, but the messenger found nothing with them. Then Allah's Apostle said to his companions, Isn't there anybody who can entertain this man tonight so that Allah may be merciful to him? An Ansari man got up and said, I will entertain him, O Allah's Apostle. So he went to his wife and said to her, This is the guest of Allah's Apostle, so do not keep anything away from him. She said, By Allah, I have nothing but the children's food. He said, When the children ask for their dinner, put them to bed and put out the light, we shall not take our meals tonight. She did so. In the morning the Ansari man went to Allah's Apostle, who said, Allah was pleased with, or he bestowed his mercy, on so and his wife, because of their good deed. Then Allah revealed, But give them preference over themselves even though they were in need of that. 59.9. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 412. Narrated by Ali, Allah's Apostle sent me along with Az Zubair and Al-Miqdad and said, Proceed till you reach a place called Ra-dat-Kuk, where there is a lady traveling in a howdah on a camel. She has a letter. Take the letter from her. So we set out, and our horses ran at full pace till we reached Ra-dat-Kuk, and behold, we saw the lady and said to her, Take out the letter. She said, I have no letter with me. We said, Either you take out the letter or we will strip you of your clothes. So she took the letter out of her hair braid. We brought the letter to the Prophet, and behold, it was addressed by Hatib bin Abi Baltay to some pagans at Mecca, informing them of some of the affairs of the Prophet. The Prophet said, What is this, O Hatib? Hatib replied, Do not be hasty with me, O Allah's Apostle. I am an Ansari man and do not belong to them, Quraysh infidels, while the emigrants who were with you had their relatives who used to protect their families and properties at Mecca. So, to compensate for not having blood relation with them, I intended to do them some favor so that they might protect my relatives at Mecca, and I did not do this out of disbelief or an inclination to desert my religion. The Prophet then said to his companions, He, Hatib, has told you the truth. Umar said, O Allah's Apostle, allow me to chop his head off. The Apostle said, He is one of those who fought in the battle of Badr, and what do you know, perhaps Allah looked upon the people of Badr warriors, and said, Do what you want as I have forgiven you. Amr, a sub-narrator, said, This verse was revealed about him, Hatib. O you who believe, take not my enemies and your enemies as friends or protectors. 60.1. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 413. Narrated by Ali, Sufyan was asked whether the verse Take not my enemies and your enemies was revealed in connection with Hatib. Sufyan replied, This occurs only in the narration of the people. I memorized the hadith from Amr, not overlooking even a single letter thereof, and I do not know of anybody who remembered it by heart other than myself. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 414. Narrated by Urwa, Aisha the wife of the Prophet, said, Allah's Apostle used to examine the believing women who migrated to him in accordance with this verse, O Prophet, when believing women come to you to take the oath of allegiance to you, verily, Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. 60.12, Aisha said, and if any of the believing women accepted the condition assigned in the above-mentioned verse, Allah's apostle would say to her, "I have accepted your pledge of allegiance." He would only say that, for, by Allah, his hand never touched any lady during that pledge of allegiance. He did not receive their pledge except by saying, "I have accepted your pledge of allegiance for that." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 415. Narrated by Ahmadiyya, we took the oath of allegiance to Allah's apostle and he recited to us, "They will not associate anything in worship with Allah," and forbade us to bewail the dead. Thereupon a lady withdrew her hand, refrained from taking the oath of allegiance, and said, "But such and such lady lamented over one of my relatives, so I must do the same over the dead relatives of hers." The Prophet did not object to that, so she went there, and returned to the Prophet, so he accepted her pledge of allegiance. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 416. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, regarding the saying of Allah, "And they will not disobey you in any just matter." 60.12, that was one of the conditions which Allah imposed on the believing women who came to take the oath of allegiance to the Prophet. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 417. Narrated by Ubaydah bin as-Samit, while we were with the Prophet, he said, "Will you swear to me the pledge of allegiance that you will not worship anything besides Allah, will not commit illegal sexual intercourse, and will not steal?" Then he recited the verse concerning the women. Sufyan, the sub-narrator, often said that the Prophet added, "Whoever among you fulfills his pledge, will receive his reward from Allah, and whoever commits any of those sins and receives the legal punishment, in this life, his punishment will be an expiation for that sin, and whoever commits any of those sins and Allah screens him, then it is up to Allah to punish or forgive them." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 418. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, I witnessed the Eid al-Fitr prayer with Allah's apostle, Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman, and all of them offered it before delivering the sermon, and then delivered the sermon. Once the Prophet, after completing the prayer and the sermon, came down, as if I am now looking at him waving at the men with his hand to sit down, and walked through them till he, along with Bilal, reached the rows of the women. Then he recited, "O Prophet, when believing women come to you to take the oath of allegiance that they will not worship anything other than Allah, will not steal, will not commit illegal sexual intercourse, will not kill their children, and will not utter slander, intentionally forging falsehood, by making illegal children belonging to their husbands." 60.12, having finished, he said, "Do you agree to that?" One lady, other than whom none replied, the Prophet said, "Yes, O Allah's apostle." The sub-narrator, Al-Hasan, did not know who the lady was. Then the Prophet said to them, "Will you give alms?" Thereupon Bilal spread out his garment and the women started throwing big rings and small rings into Bilal's garment. See Hadith number 95 Volume 2. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 419. Narrated by Jubair bin Mut'im, I heard Allah's apostle saying, "I have several names, I am Muhammad and I am Ahmad, and I am Al-Mahi with whom Allah obliterates kafr, disbelief, and I am Al-Hashir, gatherer, at whose feet, i.e. behind whom, the people will be gathered, on the day of resurrection, and I am Al-Akib, i.e. who succeeds the other prophets in bringing about good." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 420. Narrated by Abu Huraira, while we were sitting with the Prophet, Surat al-Jumu'ah was revealed to him, and when the verse, "And he, Allah, has sent him, Muhammad, also to other Muslims," 62.3, was recited by the Prophet, I said, "Who are they, O Allah's apostle?" The Prophet did not reply till I repeated my question thrice. At that time, Salman al-Farisi was with us. So Allah's apostle put his hand on Salman, saying, "If faith were at the place of Ath Thuraya, Pleiades, the highest star, Even then, some men or man from these people, i.e. Salman's folk, would attain it. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 421. Narrated by Abu Huraira, the Prophet said, "Then some men from these people would attain it." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 422. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, a caravan of merchandise arrived at Medina on a Friday while we were with the Prophet. All the people left the Prophet and headed for the caravan, except 12 persons. Then Allah revealed, "But when they see some bargain or some amusement they disperse headlong to it." 62.11. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 423. Narrated by Zayd bin Arqam, while I was taking part in a ghazwa, I heard Abdullah bin Ubay, bin Abi Salul, saying, "Don't spend on those who are with Allah's apostle, that they may disperse and go away from him. If we return to Medina, surely, the more honorable will expel the meaner amongst them." I reported that, saying, to my uncle or to Umar who, in his turn, informed the Prophet of it. The Prophet called me and I narrated to him the whole story. Then Allah's apostle sent for Abdullah bin Ubay and his companions, and they took an oath that they did not say that. So Allah's apostle disbelieved my saying and believed his. I was distressed as I never was before. I stayed at home and my uncle said to me, "You just wanted Allah's apostle to disbelieve your statement and hate you." So Allah revealed, the surah beginning with, "When the hypocrites come to you." 63.1, the Prophet then sent for me and recited it and said, "O Zayd, Allah confirmed your statement." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 424. Narrated by Zayd bin Arqam, I was with my uncle and I heard Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul, saying, "Don't spend on those who are with Allah's apostle that they may disperse and go away from him." He also said, "If we return to Medina, surely, the more honorable will expel the meaner." So I informed my uncle of that and then my uncle informed Allah's apostle thereof. Allah's apostle sent for Abdullah bin Ubay and his companions. They swore that they did not say anything of that sort. Allah's apostle deemed their statement true and rejected mine. Thereof I became as distressed as I have never been before, and stayed at home. Then Allah revealed, Surat al-Munafiqun. When the hypocrites come to you. 63.1, they are the ones who say, "Spend nothing on those who are with Allah's apostle." 63.7, verily the more honorable will expel there from the meaner. 63.7-8. Allah's apostle sent for me and recited that surah for me and said, "Allah has confirmed your statement." That is because they believed, then disbelieved, so a seal was set on their hearts, therefore they understand not. 63.3. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 425. Narrated by Zayd bin Arqam, when Abdullah bin Ubay said, "Do not spend on those who are with Allah's apostle," and also said, "If we return to Medina," I informed the Prophet of his saying. The ангիր blamed me for that, and Abdullah bin Ubay swore that he did not say. I returned to my house and slept. Allah's apostle then called me and I went to him. He said, "Allah has confirmed your statement." The verse, "They are the one who say, spend nothing." 63.7, was revealed. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 426. Narrated by Zayd bin Arqam, we went out with the Prophet, on a journey and the people suffered from lack of provisions. So Abdullah bin Ubay said to his companions, "Don't spend on those who are with Allah's apostle, that they may disperse and go away from him." He also said, "If we return to Medina, surely, the more honorable will expel there from the meaner." So I went to the Prophet and informed him of that. He sent for Abdullah bin Ubay and asked him, but Abdullah bin Ubay swore that he did not say so. The people said, "Zayd told a lie to Allah's apostle." What they said distressed me very much. Later Allah revealed the confirmation of my statement in his saying, "When the hypocrites come to you." 63.1 So the Prophet called them that they might ask Allah to forgive them, but they turned their heads aside. Concerning Allah's saying, "Pieces of wood propped up," Zayd said, "They were the most handsome men." Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 427. Narrated by Zayd bin Arqam, "While I was with my uncle, I heard Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul saying, 'Do not spend on those who are with Allah's apostle, that they may disperse and go away from him. And if we return to Medina, surely, the more honorable will expel there from the meaner.' I mentioned that to my uncle who, in turn, mentioned it to the Prophet. The Prophet called me and I told him about that. Then he sent for Abdullah bin Ubay and his companions, and they swore that they did not say so. The Prophet disbelieved my statement and believed theirs. I was distressed as I have never been before, and I remained in my house. My uncle said to me, 'You just wanted the Prophet to consider you a liar and hate you.' Then Allah revealed, 'When the hypocrites come to you, they say, we bear witness that you are indeed the apostle of Allah.' 63.1 So the Prophet sent for me and recited it and said, 'Allah has confirmed your statement.' Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 428. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, "We were in a ghazwa," Sufyan once said, "in an army, and a man from the emigrants kicked an Ansari man on the buttocks with his foot. The Ansari man said, 'O the Ansar, help,' and the emigrant said, 'O the emigrants, help.' Allah's apostle heard that and said, 'What is this call for, which is characteristic of the period of ignorance?' They said, 'O Allah's apostle, a man from the emigrants kicked one of the Ansar on the buttocks with his foot.' Allah's apostle said, 'Leave it, that call, as is a detestable thing.' Abdullah bin Ubay heard that and said, 'Have the emigrants done so? By Allah, if we return Medina, surely, the more honorable will expel there from the meaner.' When this statement reached the Prophet, Umar got up and said, 'O Allah's apostle, let me chop off the head of this hypocrite, Abdullah bin Ubay.' The Prophet said, 'Leave him, lest the people say that Muhammad kills his companions.' The Ansar were then more in number than the emigrants when the latter came to Medina, but later on the emigrant increased. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 429. Narrated by Musa bin Uqba, Abdullah bin al-Fadl told me that Anas bin Malik said, 'I was much grieved over those who had been killed in the battle of Al-Hara. When Zayd bin Arqam heard of my intense grief over the killed Ansar, he wrote a letter to me saying that he heard Allah's apostle saying, O Allah, forgive the Ansar and the Ansar children. The sub-narrator, Ibn al-Fadl, is not sure whether the Prophet also said, and their grandchildren. Some of those who were present asked Anas about Zayd. He said, he, Zayd, is the one about whom Allah's apostle said, he is the one whose sound hearing Allah testified. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 430. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, we were in a ghazwa and a man from the emigrants kicked an Ansari on the buttocks with his foot. The Ansari man said, O the Ansari, help. The emigrant said, O the emigrants, help. When Allah's apostle heard that, he said, What is that? They said, a man from the emigrants kicked a man from the Ansar on the buttocks his foot. On that the Ansar said, O the Ansar, and the emigrant said, O the emigrants. The Prophet said, Leave it, that call, for it is a detestable thing. The number of Ansar was larger than that of the emigrants at the time when the Prophet came to Medina, but later the number of emigrants increased. Abdullah bin Ubay said, Have they, the emigrants, done so? By Allah, if we return to Medina, surely, the more honorable will expel there from the meaner. Umar bin al-Khattab said, O Allah's apostle! Let me chop off the head of this hypocrite. The Prophet said, leave him, lest the people say Muhammad kills his companions. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 431. Narrated by Salim, that Abdullah bin Umar told him that he had divorced his wife while she was in her menses, so Umar informed Allah's apostle of that. Allah's apostle became very angry at that and said, Ibn Umar must return her to his house and keep her as his wife till she becomes clean and then menstruates and becomes clean again, whereupon, if he wishes to divorce her, he may do so while she is still clean and before having any sexual relations with her, for that is the legally prescribed period for divorce as Allah has ordered. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 432. Narrated by Abu Salama, a man came to Ibn Abbas while Abu Hurairah was sitting with him and said, give me your verdict regarding a lady who delivered a baby 40 days after the death of her husband. Ibn Abbas said, this indicates the end of one of the two prescribed periods. I said, for those who are pregnant, their prescribed period is until they deliver their burdens. Abu Hurairah said, I agree with my cousin, Abu Salama. Then Ibn Abbas sent his slave, Qur'an, to Salama to ask her, regarding this matter. She replied, the husband of Subayya al-Islamiyya was killed while she was pregnant, and she delivered a baby 40 days after his death. Then her hand was asked in marriage and Allah's apostle married her, to somebody. Abu as-Sanabil was one of those who asked for her hand in marriage. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 433. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, if someone says to his wife, you are unlawful to me, he must make an expiation, for his oath. Ibn Abbas added, there is for you in Allah's apostle, an excellent example to follow. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 434. Narrated by Aisha, Allah's apostle used to drink honey in the house of Zainab, the daughter of Yashir, and would stay there with her. So Hafsa and I agreed secretly that, if he come to either of us, she would say to him, it seems you have eaten magafir, a kind of bad-smelling resin, for I smell in you the smell of magafir. We did so, and he replied, no, but I was drinking honey in the house of Zainab, the daughter of Yashir, and I shall never take it again. I have taken an oath as to that, and you should not tell anybody about it. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 435. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, for the whole year I had the desire to ask Umar bin al-Khattab regarding the explanation of a verse, in Surat al-Tarim, but I could not ask him because I respected him very much. When he went to perform the Hajj, I too went along with him. On our return, while we were still on the way home, Umar went aside to answer the call of nature by the arak trees. I waited till he finished and then I proceeded with him and asked him, O chief of the believers, who were the two wives of the Prophet who aided one another against him? He said, they were Hafsa and Aisha. Then I said to him, by Allah, I wanted to ask you about this a year ago, but I could not do so owing to my respect for you. Umar said, do not refrain from asking me. If you think that I have knowledge about a certain matter, ask me, and if I know something about it, I will tell you. Then Umar added, by Allah, in the pre-Islamic period of ignorance we did not pay attention to women until Allah revealed regarding them what he revealed regarding them and assigned for them what he has assigned. Once while I was thinking over a certain matter, my wife said, I recommend that you do so and so. I said to her, what have you got to do with this matter? Why do you poke your nose in a matter which I want to see fulfilled? She said, how strange you are, O son of Al-Khattab. You don't want to be argued with, whereas your daughter, Hafsa, surely argues with Allah's apostle so much that he remains angry for a full day. Umar then reported, how he at once put on his outer garment and went to Hafsa and said to her, O my daughter, do you argue with Allah's apostle so that he remains angry the whole day? Hafsa said, by Allah, we argue with him. Umar said, know that I warn you of Allah's punishment and the anger of Allah's apostle. O my daughter! Don't be betrayed by the one who is proud of her beauty because of the love of Allah's apostle for her, i.e. Aisha. Umar added, then I went out to Salama's house, who was one of my relatives, and I talked to her. She said, O son of Al-Khattab, it is rather astonishing that you interfere in everything, you even want to interfere between Allah's apostle and his wives. By Allah, by her talk she influenced me so much that I lost some of my anger. I left her, and went home. At that time I had a friend from the ангիր who used to bring news from the Prophet, in case of my absence, and I used to bring him the news if he was absent. In those days we were afraid of one of the kings of Ghassan tribe. We heard that he intended to move and attack us, so fear filled our hearts because of that. One day, my Ansari friend unexpectedly knocked at my door, and said, open, open. I said, has the king of Ghassan come? He said, no, but something worse, Allah's apostle has isolated himself from his wives. I said, let the nose of Aisha and Hafsa be stuck to dust, i.e. humiliated. Then I put on my clothes and went to Allah's apostle's residence, and behold, he was staying in an upper room of his, to which he ascended by a ladder, and a black slave of Allah's apostle was sitting on the first step. I said to him, say to the Prophet, Umar bin al-Khattab is here. Then the Prophet admitted me, and I narrated the story to Allah's apostle. When I reached the story of Salama, Allah's apostle smiled while he was lying on a mat made of palm tree leaves with nothing between him and the mat. Underneath his head there was a leather pillow stuffed with palm fibers, and leaves of a saw tree were piled at his feet, and above his head hung a few water skins. On seeing the marks of the mat imprinted on his side, I wept. He said, why are you weeping? I replied, O Allah's apostle, Caesar and Khosrau are leading the life, i.e. luxurious life, while you, Allah's apostle though you are, is living in destitute. The Prophet then replied, won't you be satisfied that they enjoy this world and we the hereafter? Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 436. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, I intended to ask Umar, so I said, who were those two ladies who tried to back each other against the Prophet? I hardly finished my speech when he said, they were Aisha and Hafsa. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 437. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, I intended to ask Umar about those two ladies who back each other against Allah's apostle. For 1 year I was seeking the opportunity to ask this question, but in vain, until once when I accompanied him for Hajj. While we were in Zaran, Umar went to answer the call of nature and told me to follow him with some water for ablution. So I followed him with a container of water and started pouring water for him. I found it a good opportunity to ask him, so I said, O chief of the believers, who were those two ladies who had backed each other against the Prophet? Before I could complete my question, he replied, they were Aisha and Hafsa. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 438. Narrated by Umar, the wives of the Prophet out of their jealousy, backed each other against the Prophet, so I said to them, it may be, if he divorced you all, that Allah will give him, instead of you, wives better than you. So this verse was revealed. 66.5. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 439. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, regarding the verse cruel after all that, baseborn, of illegitimate birth. 68.13, it was revealed in connection with a man from Quraysh who had a notable sign, zinama, similar to the notable sign which usually hung on the neck of a sheep, to recognize it. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 440. Narrated by Haritha bin Wahb al-Huzay, I heard the Prophet saying, may I tell you of the people of paradise? Every weak and poor obscure person whom the people look down upon, but his oath is fulfilled by Allah when he takes an oath to do something. And may I inform you of the people of the hellfire? They are all those violent, arrogant, and stubborn people. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 441. Narrated by Abu said, I heard the Prophet saying, Allah will bring forth the severest hour, and then all the believers, men and women, will prostrate themselves before him, but there will remain those who used to prostrate in the world for showing off and for gaining good reputation. Such people will try to prostrate, on the day of judgment, but their backs will be as stiff as if it is one bone, a single vertebra. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 442. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, all the idols which were worshipped by the people of Noah were worshipped by the Arabs later on. As for the idol Wad, it was worshipped by the tribe of Kalb at Damat al-Jandal. Suwa was the idol of the tribe of Murad, and then by Ban, Gutayf at al-Jurf near Saba. Yak was the idol of Hamdan, and Nasr was the idol of Himr, the branch of Di al-Kala. The names of the idols formerly belonged to some pious men of the people of Noah, and when they died Satan inspired their people to prepare and place idols at the places where they used to sit, and to call those idols by their names. The people did so, but the idols were not worshipped till those people, who initiated them, had died and the origin of the idols had become obscure, whereupon people began worshipping them. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 443. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, Allah's apostle went out along with a group of his companions towards Ukaz market. At that time something intervened between the devils and the news of the heaven, and flames were sent down upon them, so the devils returned. Their fellow devils said, What is wrong with you? They said, Something has intervened between us and the news of the heaven, and fires, flames, have been shot at us. Their fellow devils said, Nothing has intervened between you and the news of the heaven, but an important event has happened. Therefore, travel all over the world, east and west, and try to find out what has happened. And so they set out and traveled all over the world, east and west, looking for that thing which intervened between them and the news of the heaven. Those of the devils who had set out towards Tehama, went to Allah's apostle at Nakhla, a place between Mecca and Taif, while he was on his way to Ukaz market. They met him, while he was offering the Fajr prayer with his companions. When they heard the Holy Quran being recited, by Allah's apostle, they listened to it and said, to each other, This is the thing which has intervened between you and the news of the heavens. Then they returned to their people and said, O our people! We have really heard a wonderful recital, Quran. It gives guidance to the right, and we have believed therein. We shall not join in worship anybody with our Lord. See 72.1-2. Then Allah revealed to his Prophet, Surat al-Jinn. Say, it has been revealed to me that a group, 3-9, of jinns listened to the Quran. 72.1, the statement of the jinns was revealed to him. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 444. Narrated by Yahya bin Abi Kathir, I asked Abu Salama bin Abdurrahman about the first surah revealed of the Quran. He replied, O you, wrapped up, i.e. al-Mudaththir. I said, they say it was read in the name of your Lord who created, i.e. Surat al-Alaq, the clod. On that, Abu Salama said, I asked Jabir bin Abdullah about that, saying the same as you have said, whereupon he said, I will not tell you except what Allah's apostle had told us. Allah's apostle said, I was in seclusion in the cave of Hiram, and after I completed the limited period of my seclusion, I came down from the cave, and heard a voice calling me. I looked to my right, but saw nothing. Then I looked up and saw something. So I went to Khadijah, the Prophet's wife, and told her to wrap me up and pour cold water on me. So they wrapped me up and poured cold water on me. Then, O you, Muhammad, wrapped up. Arise and warn, Surat al-Mudaththir, was revealed. 74.1. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 445. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, the Prophet said, I was in a seclusion in the cave of Hira, similar to the narration related by Ali bin al-Mubarak, 444 above. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 446. Narrated by Yahya, I asked Abu Salama, which surah of the Quran was revealed first. He replied, O you, wrapped up, al-Mudaththir. I said, I have been informed that it was, read, in the name of your Lord who created. i.e. Surat al-Alaq. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 447. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, I heard the Prophet describing the period of pause of the divine inspiration. He said in his talk, while I was walking, I heard voices from the sky. I looked up, and behold, I saw the same angel who came to me in the cave of Hira sitting on a chair between the sky and the earth. I was too much afraid of him, so I returned to my house, and said, Fold me up in garments. They wrapped me up. Then Allah revealed, O you wrapped, and desert the idols before the prayer became compulsory. Rajas means idols. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 448. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, that he heard Allah's apostle describing the period of pause of the divine inspiration, and in his description he said, While I was walking I heard a voice from the sky. I looked up towards the sky, and behold, I saw the same angel who came to me in the cave of Hira, sitting on a chair between the sky and the earth. I was so terrified by him that I fell down on the ground. Then I went to my wife and said, Wrap me in garments. Wrap me in garments. They wrapped me, and then Allah revealed, O you, Muhammad, wrapped up. Arise and warn, and desert the idols. 74.1-5, Abu Salama said. Rajas means idols. After that, the divine inspiration started coming more frequently and regularly. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 449. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, the Prophet used to move his tongue when the divine inspiration was being revealed to him. Sufyan, a sub-narrator, demonstrated how the Prophet used to move his lips, and added, in order to memorize it. So Allah revealed, Move not your tongue concerning the Quran, to make haste therewith. 75.16. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 450. Narrated by Musa bin Abi Aisha, that he asked Said bin Jubair regarding the statement of Allah. Move not your tongue concerning the Quran, to make haste therewith. He said, Ibn Abbas said that the Prophet used to move his lips when the divine inspiration was being revealed to him. So the Prophet was ordered not to move his tongue, which he used to do, lest some words should escape his memory. It is for us to collect it means, we will collect it in your chest, and its recitation means, we will make you recite it. But when we recite it, i.e. when it is revealed to you, follow its recital, it is for us to explain it and make it clear, i.e. we will explain it through your tongue. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 451. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, as regards Allah's statement. Move not your tongue concerning the Quran, to make haste therewith. 75.16. When Gabriel revealed the divine inspiration in Allah's apostle, he, Allah's apostle, moved his tongue and lips, and that state used to be very hard for him, and that movement indicated that revelation was taking place. So Allah revealed in Surat al-Qiyamah, which begins, I do swear by the day of resurrection, 75, the verses. Move not your tongue concerning the Quran, to make haste therewith. It is for us to collect it, Quran, in your mind, and give you the ability to recite it by heart. 75.16-17, Ibn Abbas added, it is for us to collect it, Quran, in your mind, and give you the ability to recite it by heart means, when we reveal it, listen. Then it is for us to explain it, means, it is for us to explain it through your tongue. So whenever Gabriel came to Allah's apostle he would keep quiet, and listen, and when the angel left, the Prophet would recite that revelation as Allah promised him. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 452. Narrated by Abdullah, we were with the Prophet when Surat wal-Mursalat was revealed to him. While we were receiving it from his mouth, a snake suddenly came and we ran to kill it, but it outstripped us and entered its hole quickly. Allah's Eli said, it has escaped your evil, and you too, have escaped its evil. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 453. Narrated by Abdullah, similarly as number 452 above. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 454. Narrated by Abdullah, while we were with Allah's apostle in a cave, Surat wal-Mursalat was revealed to him and we received it directly from his mouth as soon as he had received the revelation. Suddenly a snake came out and Allah's apostle said, get at it and kill it. We ran to kill it but it outstripped us. Allah's apostle said, it has escaped your evil, as you too, have escaped it. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 455. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, as regards the explanation of Hadith 454. Indeed, it, hell, throws about sparks, huge, as forts. We used to collect wood in the form of logs, 3 cubits long or shorter. For heating purposes in winter, and we used to call such wood, the kasr. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 456. Narrated by Abdullah, while we were with the Prophet in a cave, Surat wal-Mursalat was revealed to him and he recited it, and I heard it directly from his mouth as soon as he recited its revelation. Suddenly a snake sprang at us, and the Prophet said, kill it. We ran to kill it but it escaped quickly. The Prophet said, it has escaped your evil, and you too have escaped its evil. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 457. Narrated by Al-Amash, Abu Hurairah said, Allah's apostle said, between the two sounds of the trumpet, there will be 40. Somebody asked Abu Hurairah, 40 days. But he refused to reply. Then he asked, 40 months. He refused to reply. Then he asked, 40 years. Again, he refused to reply. Abu Hurairah added, then, after this period, Allah will send water from the sky and then the dead bodies will grow like vegetation grows. There is nothing of the human body that does not decay except one bone, that is the little bone at the end of the coccyx of which the human body will be recreated on the day of resurrection. See Hadith number 338. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 458. Narrated by Sahl bin Sa'd, I saw Allah's apostle pointing with his index and middle fingers, saying, the time of my advent and the hour are like these two fingers. The great catastrophe will overwhelm everything. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 459. Narrated by Aisha, the Prophet said, such a person as recites the Quran and masters it by heart, will be with the noble righteous scribes, in heaven. And such a person exerts himself to learn the Quran by heart, and recites it with great difficulty, will have a double reward. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 460. Narrated by Abdullah bin Umar, the Prophet said, on the day when all mankind will stand before the Lord of the worlds, some of them will be enveloped in their sweat up to the middle of their ears. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 461. Narrated by Aisha, I heard the Prophet saying, he surely will receive an easy reckoning. 84.8. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 462. Narrated by Aisha, I heard the Prophet saying, he surely will receive an easy reckoning. 84.8. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 463. Narrated by Aisha, Allah's Apostle said, on the day of resurrection, anyone whose account will be taken will be ruined, i.e. go to hell. I said, O Allah's Apostle, may Allah make me be sacrificed for you. Doesn't Allah say? Then as for him who will be given his record in his right hand, he surely will receive an easy reckoning. 84.7-8, he replied, that is only the presentation of the accounts, but he whose record is questioned, will be ruined. Sahih Bukhari Volume 6, Book 60, Hadith number 464. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, as regards the verse you shall surely travel from stage to stage, in this life and in the hereafter. It means, from one state to another. That concerns your Prophet.